All right. Well, in the past couple of weeks, I've gleaned a few things running appointments that I've always kind of believed were important, but never really got to experience firsthand the actual importance of them. And I wanted to talk about those things, and I also wanted to gather Chad's thoughts on the topic. I mean, Chad, I did the math. You've been running appointments for 18 years, right? Going back to 2006 when you were starting to sell. And obviously, you've been actually running appointments longer than that, but
Yeah.
annuity specific, I believe, was 2006, correct?
Yep. Yep.
Yeah. So
And
you've been
and
running
I
them for
think
a
what you're
long
finding
time.
out is boy wonder hasn't found the wonder yet. Or he's
Not
just
quite.
wondering why aren't they buying yet?
Well, yeah. So I've had exclusively first appointments so far. I haven't even had a
Yeah.
second appointment yet. Um, what a few things that I've learned in the
Well,
first
wait, let me
appointment.
ask that. Let me
Yeah,
ask
go.
that because I'm all about statistics. So you've had how many first appointments?
4.
Four. And how many second appointments did you schedule out of the four?
Well, one was a one sit close, so that one
Okay.
none.
Phenomenal. Okay.
Thank you. And then I've got well the other 3 were, and then I've had to
Okay.
reschedule one twice, and then one canceled, like
Okay.
definitively canceled.
I'm just
So I
curious
still meet,
because,
yeah,
yeah, because a lot of times people don't get that second appointment, even though they had the first appointment, they don't schedule the second appointment right there. So
well, that's
you've
the key,
had,
is scheduling it in the first
yeah,
appointment. Get it
it
locked
is.
down.
So you have one
Even and
appointment, one sit, one,
mhm.
go ahead. You have
Well, I
one
have 4
appointment, one sit,
appointments,
one
first
close.
appointments.
Yeah,
Mhm.
one appointment where you scheduled it, but they canceled on you. You have one appointment that you've rescheduled twice, and then you have one appointment that is still booked
I
to
meet
meet
with
with.
them tomorrow. Mhm.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I want our
So
listeners
those are
to hear
the
that
current
because you
metrics.
just got
Totally.
started in running appointments and you literally are 4 for 4 as far as second appointments. Now, technically, you could say the one set close wasn't, but it would have been.
True.
So, because you would have asked. Okay,
Yeah,
go for it.
I mean, yeah, based on the purchase, absolutely.
Yeah.
And so I've tried to make some notes of, coming out of each one of those, what seemed like the most important piece of the thing. Like, what did the client seem most, not concerned with, but process wise, most moved by, most impacted by, all those types of things. And so I have 3 notes here. Number one, and we beat this, I mean, all the time, is a dead horse for Chad and I. I mean, but the importance of good fact finding. I mean, my goodness, I was thinking about
You know,
this earlier.
it's a dead
Chad, we were
horse,
talking
but
about this.
agents, yeah. Yeah, it's a dead
Sometimes they
horse,
do,
but
sometimes
agents
they
keep
don't.
resurrecting it because they keep, yeah, they're not doing the fact finding. And there are
Right.
some really good ones out there. But you know what? You're the one that talks to agents all the time. The ones that are succeeding in writing a bunch of business are good at fact finding.
It's true. Well, and here's a case in point. One of the leads I had said $100,000 to invest. Right.
Yep.
Call them, do the mini fact finder, ask them, okay, so what do you have in qualified accounts, IRAs, 401ks, Roths, things like that? And he said, oh, about 1 million. So I went out and
Wait,
I
wait.
showed him $1 million
Say,
illustration.
yeah. Say that again for the ones in the back. Go
The
over that
lead said he
again.
had a
How
hundred
much did they
thousand,
say
and
they had?
lead said he had 100,000. Go out or do the mini fact finder on the phone. Find out he's got $1 million in qualified accounts, about 300,000 in non-qualified stocks, bonds, mutual funds, and 500,000 chilling in the bank.
Yep.
Okay, so we've got some wiggle room there. I showed him $1 million illustration, and I meet with him tomorrow, and we'll see what we can do. But
You didn't show them up for 100,000.
no,
I
absolutely
mean,
not.
why? That's what he told you they have.
That's what he
I'm
said on
being
the lead.
sarcastic, but I mean,
No, I
this
know.
is why, that point right there is the average agent is about 150,000 per client is their average sale.
Mhm.
And I think
Right,
mine's what, 560, 570 per client. It's because
it's
we
north of
know how
five.
to
Yeah,
ask the questions. Yeah.
yeah,
So,
right.
yep.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Um, I mean, think about that for a second. That one, because you asked the right question. I could come across 2 other individuals that both have below average case sizes, equate to, let's say, they're 100,000 in premium. If all 3 of those go through an issue, that's $1.2 million in premium. You divide that by 3, that's a $400,000 average case size. which is almost
Yeah.
3 times the industry average. Why? Because you asked the right questions on all three,
Yeah.
and one of them happened to be gargantuously larger than what they originally said on the lead.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
leads may all look the same, but what they're actually working with is vastly different. And the power of good
Right.
fact finding. Chad, I mentioned something to you this morning that I had never really thought about until actually trying to articulate things to an end client, right? I've worked with agents for years now, but actually articulating things to an end client. And I'm like, we've got 4 questions on the full fact finder that, depending on how they answer those, should pretty much be a hook, line, sinker. I mean, just perfect scenario for an FIA with it, particularly with an income rider. If you ask them at the top, how long are you going to live? Obviously, nobody knows. What's the stock market going to do? Obviously, nobody knows. So, can we agree that building a retirement plan based on an assumption about either one of those things is a faulty foundation? Yes, of course. Okay. So, we're going to take out any kind of longevity expectation or any risk of it, and we're going to take out any risk of market
Yeah.
performance. Okay.
Yeah.
Then you ask them, what are you willing to lose? All of your money, some of your money, or none of your money? Well, I don't want to lose any of my money. Okay. There's the first thing. Now we're dealing no more risk, no more variable.
Yeah.
We got 0% floor options only at this point. And then you ask them, is this a plan for living or a plan for dying? Oh, it's a plan for
Yeah.
living. Okay. So now what do you got? You've got to protect the principal. You obviously want to participate in the upside of the market, and you've got a plan for living. So you're talking about guaranteed lifetime income. There's one singular product that handles all 4 of those questions and
Right.
addresses all 4 of those. There is
Yeah.
literally not another option out there. So then when the client comes back later and they're like, oh, I was looking at this other thing, it makes the objection handling, should make the objection handling easier, because they've literally told you these 4 things that can only be addressed with the one thing that you're
Hmm.
positioning.
And
Um,
it's
so,
funny
anyways,
though,
good
because
fact finding.
one of your clients came back and
She did.
had a objection, and that didn't roll off your tongue like that.
It
Now it
didn't.
did. And this goes, it goes to show you why it's so important to not just know the information, but to study it and go over it and over it and over it. So that way, when they have that response, it automatically, it's like Caleb knows this. I mean, somebody gives me an objection. Actually, our producer started to throw out an objection, like to say kind of what the client, and I immediately went into objection handling mode,
Mm-hmm.
not intentionally. It just naturally, I went into that and bam, 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 bombarded. He was like, wait. He literally goes, I'm not going to win an objection handling contest with you. I'm not going to have a rebuttal for that. But it was funny
Yep.
because it was so subconsciously embedded in me that I knew the objection and it just came out. I know the objection handling right there. And so we've got to go through these courses and through the academy over and over and over again to where somebody comes up with that objection, because when Caleb told me what she said, I can't jump on the phone right there and go, hey, move out of the way.
Right.
You don't. I don't have
Right.
the double yoke like a pilot does. And like, hey, you know what? We're about to crash. We're about to go. I couldn't take that over. But when you're talking, you know the right answers. You know the right
Right. It's
answers.
just it's just a matter of getting those to translate into a fluid,
Correct.
right? When you're kind of caught off guard, because what was interesting was the plan was perfect for what she needed it to do. It was
For
in
sure.
alignment with everything she told me, and yet I'm
Mm-hmm.
getting this call saying, "Hey, I'm going to save you a trip because I'm looking at a different thing." My knee jerk
Yeah.
reaction went to, and well, I guess the initial question may not have been bad. So, okay, what are you looking at? Right? Like, what's
Yeah.
the other thing? Because I need to try and understand what is it that she's considering to be able to provide the juxtaposition. The problem was, once
Mm-hmm.
I heard what she was considering, my reaction wasn't to create the juxtaposition, but to try to degrade that thing. Um,
Mm-hmm.
going, asking about staying exposed to risk and all that kind of stuff. But anyways,
Yeah. Well,
you live and you
you
learn.
acted like you liked a cat where somebody just stepped on your tail. I told you, right? I said I felt kind of like I felt really bad for him because the way he responded, not
Apparently, my
because it
voice
was
changed.
wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah, it did. It seemed like, oh my gosh, somebody just kicked his puppy. And now remember, this is someone who I have named as one of the top 3 marketers I've ever known in my entire life. So if you think about this, one of the top 3, and I've been in this business for 20 years, and he's still, after training so many agents, I mean, probably thousands of agents, he has that. This is why having someone who's in the field is so important to be training you,
Mm,
because Caleb can
yeah,
do case design like a master. He knows the right answers. He knows the objection handling, but it's still a matter of who's in the field with you, running
right.
appointments just like you, running these same things. And this is one of the reasons I know you wanted to start running appointments, is because
Absolutely.
Caleb wanted that first world experience of, if I'm going to be helping agents, I want to know what they're going through. And
Hmm.
he's been asking for probably 6 months to a year to be able to run the field, and now he's seeing what is, and it's just going to make you better and better. I assure
I'm
you,
excited
Caleb,
for it.
you're going to be phenomenal. I have no doubt about
Yeah, you just keep learning and growing.
it. Yep.
There was two
Yep.
other things that I noticed from other appointments. Number one, the necessity of having a presentation and a process. It was hilarious because the first guy I ever met with, I go through the presentation that I've obviously gleaned from Chad, and all the
Hmm.
documents and everything that it's the retirement realized sales system. It's what we do. Like, this is
Yeah.
just how it's local agents. We train them to do the same thing. Agents in the academy, we train them to do the same thing. I mean, it's just what it is.
Hmm.
So I go through this first time I've ever actually walked somebody through the first appointment, and I almost started laughing. It made me smile, and I had to kind of contain myself because he goes, "Well, you can tell you've been doing this a while." That's literally what he said, and I didn't. I'm like, "Yep." I'm like, "Sure." No, I didn't say anything,
But you have
but
been, just not in front of
I've been working
clients.
with agents, right? Well, and it's
Yeah.
funny because what you glean from observing you doing it, Chad, for all this,
Yeah.
all these years and time, listening to you on the phone. I've run appointments with you. I've seen it, and then obviously going through the academy. But I don't know what agents would do in an appointment if they don't have those documents. If they don't have
Yeah.
the presentation, like what are you guys even talking with your clients about if you're not going over these things? Like,
You
I
know
don't
what we
know.
used to do? So
What?
we used to have these notepads, and
Mhm.
you'd actually write down everything. You would go over the risk that was safe money risk. And actually, you didn't even do it back in those days, man. You just go over the cap, participation rate, and spread. You'd write down, like, we wouldn't even have fact finders. The
That's
factor
crazy.
finder is something I believe, and I'm not 100%, but my mentor had a 7-page fact finder, and I'm like, he was one of the first that I knew of that had one. I'm like, I'm not doing a 7-pager, because to me that's kind of intimidating. Him
Sure.
and his age, it was perfect for. And whoa, that's kind of crazy. I just realized when
You're
I
getting to
met
his age.
him, I I am. I'm almost at the age he was when I first met him.
Hmm.
Whoa. Okay. I feel really old all of a sudden. But but it's changed, and now we lay that out. The
Yeah.
fact finder, you're right. It
Right.
it can take someone who's new in the client, seeing clients, to where they're experts, because you're literally following the same process.
Totally. Well, and that's the thing. It's like, if you're bringing a client, you should be bringing a client into some kind of flow, some kind of
Hmm.
process. I see
Yeah.
agents often just constantly appease the client's desires and wishes and preferences, and it creates this extremely turbulent and inconsistent process for them. I don't, and it doesn't work. I've not seen an agent that's just super passive and let their clients just take control over things. I've not seen an agent that
Yeah.
does that actually write good, consistent business
No.
ever. They might
No.
they might close a few cases a year, but it's pretty sparse for that type. So you're bringing
Well,
clients into a
yeah.
process. Go ahead.
No, it's like
Well, and
a blind squirrel can find a nut. I mean, that's really
sure.
what it means. There's certain clients you meet with that it's just, they're so fed up with their broker, they just want to they've
Hmm.
done their research, they know what it is. It's no skill of the agent. It's just they know what they want.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So you bringing them into a process, and you're an expert in your process. That's the key. Is
Hmm.
obviously you want to be an expert in all the things, but be an expert in your process, and it will convey a confidence not only in that you know what you're doing and you know what you're talking about, but it'll actually create a confidence that they have in you. It can offset some of the lack of experience by being an expert in the way you're progressing through the thing. Like, I had never met with anybody before, and I'd say I'm an industry expert. Absolutely. I understand this stuff. I know this stuff conceptually
100%.
inside and out. That's great. But
Mm.
if that doesn't translate, that knowledge doesn't translate in a smooth and eloquent way to the client that's understandable to them, they're
Mhm.
not going to perceive the knowledge you have as expertise because they're not understanding it. So an expert is able to take something that
For
seems
sure.
complex and actually explain it in a simple way that other people are able to understand and buy into. Um, and then
Yep.
the third thing that I noticed from appointments is the necessity of knowing your product and carrier inside and out. The big $1 million uh, client that I was working with, I mean, he had question upon question upon question about the product and wanted clarification on this and how does this work to here. And thankfully, I knew the product inside and out. I knew the carrier inside and out, and I was able to
Yep.
answer all those questions for him accurately and truthfully, not just pulling things out of thin air like some people do. It's like if I didn't know something, I was ready to tell him, "Hey, I'm not sure about that, but I will
Yeah.
find out and I will let you know." But I didn't need to do that, and there's probably 8 or 10
Yeah.
questions he asked about it that isn't necessarily part of the normal illustration explanation process. Um,
Yep.
some of it he just wanted more elaboration on, like, and confidence and clarity on certain pieces. So, anyways, those three
Yep.
things: good fact finding, having a presentation process that you're bringing them into, and then knowing your product and carrier inside and out are, at least at this point, 4 appointments into this deal, the three like biggest pieces that I can attest to the importance of.
Awesome. Think you're gonna kill it, man. I have no doubt about it. So, well, I hope this helps you guys. Even a blind squirrel can find a nut. Caleb's finding it. So,
Trying.
okay. Have a great day
We'll see you
and
guys.
happy selling.